When people ask me, is AI taking over the tech industry? Am I going to lose my job? Are we all screwed? My answer is, if you're a software engineer like I am, chances are that over the past few months, at some point you've had this existential crisis watching ChatGPT spit out line after line after line of perfect code and thinking to yourself, damn, is my job safe? Is this industry safe? And it's a fair question. I mean, even the biggest skeptics of AI agree that it represents a seismic shift in the way that we're going to work, and for many of us it already has. In this video, I'm going to share with you 4 skills that I think all software engineers, including myself, need to be learning and cultivating over the next few months and years to really future-proof our career. And stay tuned, because I think number 4 will surprise you. It's not something that people really talk about or associate with the industry, but I think it might actually be the most important skill that you can develop. So with that, let's jump into this. Step 1 is actually getting good at using AI to automate some of the more easy, repetitive, mundane tasks that you face on a daily basis, things that take up a lot of your time. Think about how much time you spend on Stack Overflow, right? Like looking up how to transform a string in a certain way, or figuring out how your language's map filter function works. We spend a lot of time doing these repetitive, mundane things, and AI can be really effective at streamlining all of that. Think about it as, instead of going on Stack Overflow and 15 other pages, you can just use AI as a resource to kind of get you 85–90% of the way there. And that's part of the skill about using it, right? You have to get good at giving it clear, concise instructions and being able to filter through some of the nonsense, right? Like AI hallucinations are a real thing. The other thing to keep in mind is that everyone else is going to be doing it. And so to get yourself that competitive advantage, you may as well start doing it. You may as well start practicing. And I mean that literally, start practicing using AI, giving it the directions, learning how to kind of speak in a way that, or type in a way that it understands, giving clear, concise, direct instructions. And this is actually going to help you out later on in your career when you have to start delegating work to junior engineers. So it's a skill. And once you start mastering it, it's going to actually save you some time to work on higher level, more important, bigger problems. And that brings me on to step 2, which is getting good at system design. When I was at Microsoft, we had 4 kind of buckets of engineers, right? There was SWE 1, SWE 2, senior, and principal. And typically, this is obviously not like a one-to-one thing, but for the most part, as you moved up the ranks, the less time you spent, in heads down coding mode, right? So maybe a SWE 1 would spend 85% of their time coding, whereas a principal might spend maybe 10 to 15% of his time coding. The reason for this is that as you move up the ranks, the more time you spend working on designing solutions to problems rather than actually writing the code yourself. The more time you spend working with various stakeholders, working with partner teams, working with management. In other words, as you move up the ranks, the more time you spend designing solutions to problems and potentially even starting to delegate certain tasks to certain, maybe junior engineers, and the less time you spent being delegated work and working on smaller, more repetitive tasks on a daily basis. In order to do this, system design is kind of critical. You need to be able to make these trade-offs. You need to be able to weigh the pros and cons of various decisions, how to take a very, very vague problem that you're given and then actually come up with a solution. I know this sounds intimidating, especially if you're new to this stuff. It's all good. It takes some time to actually get good at it. But the way to start, in my view, especially if you're already working, is just ask your manager, ask your lead engineer to start sitting in on the meetings. You don't even have to participate. Just say, hey, look, I want to learn. I want to start getting involved in some of these design discussions. Start sitting in on the meetings, and as you start learning more and more and more, say, hey, look, maybe I can take on a small portion of the overall design, right? Maybe I can design this small sliver of whatever problem it is, and then you can do a bigger sliver, and soon enough, before you know it, you're going to be designing solutions to entire problems. But what problems are you actually designing a solution for? That's step 3, which is learning how to identify the right problem to solve at the right time for the business. This is not about going and getting an MBA and learning about all of how this stuff works. You can if you want, if that's interesting to you. But the way to actually start doing this is really just paying attention to what people are talking about in the company. It's usually very clear. It's not like they try to hide this stuff, right? You'll get a lot of emails from some of the big executives, right? The C-level guys, and they'll be talking. Usually you just kind of read those emails, you read through it, it's like, okay, it's just a bunch of corporate jargon, blah, blah, blah. if you actually read through the jargon and see what the big, buzzwords that they're using are, that will give you a very, very clear idea, a clear picture of what the priorities for the company are. It's actually that simple, really. Like if you go to their, the speech, the town hall that they run or whatever it may be, however your company works, they'll be talking very clearly, hey, these are our priorities for Q3. I remember at one point at Microsoft, security was the big concern, right? There was obviously, it's public news, there was this big SolarWinds hack. And obviously at that point, a lot of companies started really, really clamping down on security and making it a big thing. And I remember at that point, I just started thinking about what kind of security problems I could solve. How could I make my team's product more secure? And I found a couple ways to do it. I pitched them to my manager. I got them done, and guess what? I got multiple promotions. I got promoted twice just because of the small set of features that I worked on to actually make the product more secure. And this is kind of important, right? Because it's like, I didn't even do like a monumental amount of work with these features. I had bigger features that I worked on that were less valuable to the company, and I didn't get rewarded for that. This is a common misconception among engineers. Like, it's not about the difficulty of the problem that you're solving. It's not about how much code you write. None of that matters. Nobody cares. The people who are making the decisions, they simply care about, is this problem that this guy solved valuable to the company? Is this thing that this guy did valuable? Start identifying problems that are critical to the company, and really the easiest way to do this is to just pay attention. The other thing you can do is start talking to other people, right? Start talking to PMs, start talking to other managers, start talking to other engineers. This brings me on to step 4, which is improve your social skills. And this is kind of counterintuitive because you think, okay, I'm an engineer, I'm nerdy, whatever, right? Like that's the kind of the stereotype, the connotation. At the end of the day, successful engineers, especially at the higher levels, are very good at working with people, are very good at getting people on board with their vision for what they want, right? If you are an engineer and you design especially once you get to a higher level and you're designing and implementing solutions for big problems that require work from multiple teams, you have to convince each and every one of those teams to allocate resources oftentimes to working on your problem. They have 15 other things on their backlog. Remember, each of these people have different motivations. They have different things that they're working on to get themselves promoted. And so if you're going to convince people to work on what you want, to get on your side, get on board with you, you have to be able to make a very clear pitch. This is why this is important. This is why, you don't actually say it, but like you actually kind of are making the case of like, hey, like this is going to get all of us promoted, right? If your team works on this with me, like this is the value that it's going to create for the company, blah, 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 right? You have to kind of understand how this stuff works. People talk about politics like it's a bad thing, and office politics can be toxic for sure, but if like every office is going to have politics, like you have to understand that. At the end of the day, office politics really is just the fact that we're a group of people and we are working with limited resources, right? We can't allocate resources, which could be man hours, it could be money, it could be anything, to all of the different things that we want to do, which means we have to prioritize. And the way that we prioritize, the way that we figure out what's most valuable is by people making a pitch and saying, hey, look, this is why I think this is important. You have to be able to make clear, concise, cogent arguments. By the way, if you're interested in this stuff and you want to learn more, I have a video that's going to pop up here that goes over how to talk to someone who has a perceived higher status than you and actually make a good impression. So to sum this up, when people ask me, is AI taking over the tech industry? Am I going to lose my job? Are we all screwed? My answer is probably not immediately. You probably don't need to worry about this over the next 2, 3, 4 years, but it definitely makes sense to take some steps to future-proof your career, to make yourself more marketable, especially in the post-AI world, as someone who can not only survive and add value, but actually add a ton more value because of AI. If you're someone who can identify key problems that the business needs to solve, design solutions, and then actually break up those tasks and delegate them, hell, AI can actually make you more effective. And so if you follow these 4 steps, I think you're going to put yourself in a really good spot moving forward. If you like this video, drop a like down below, comment, let me know what you think, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, peace out.